The world we live in is full of so many mysteries beyond our imagination or understanding. The world and the universe are far larger than we can ever hope to understand. The universe is home to a countless amount of dark, mysterious, and empty worlds that forever spark our curiosity, making us question if these worlds are truly empty. Humans in some sense don't understand life or the universe. Because we weren't around since the beginning, we can't know what formed this universe. They can rise a great curiosity and fear as mysteries that lie in the dark corners of space, but let's bring it back to home. From another viewpoint, Earth is quite an exquisite planet. It is quite peaceful on the outside and beautiful and very mysterious. Yet it's one of the most horrifying places known to us. It cannot have places somewhat comparable to outer space, such as the ocean or even the wilderness, because these could be seen as a version of Earth's empty worlds. But they're not really empty, because they hold a great amount of discoveries and mystery that are far beyond our very comprehension. It could be said that life is far more interesting than fiction. Life indeed does contain great beauty and an endless amount of the unknown, things for us to discover. But humanity has barely scratched the surface. Today, I will be reading you all a story of unimaginable horror. It's one I find deeply interesting and disturbs me to my core. The story shows why you should never go hiking alone. It shows why the wilderness is such a treacherous and untrustworthy place and can be full of undiscovered darkness that humanity has not even stepped foot in. And always keep an eye directly on the ones you love, or you may never see them again. Sit back and relax. This is I'm a search and rescue officer. I have a pretty good track record for finding missing people. Most of the time, they just wander off the path or slip down a small cliff and they can't find a way back. The majority of them have heard the old stay where you are thing, don't wander far off, but I've had 2 cases where that didn't happen, and both bother me a lot, and I use them as motivation to search even harder when the missing cases I get called on. The first was a little boy who was out bear picking with his parents. He and his sister were together when they both disappeared. The parents lost sight of them for a few seconds, and in that time, apparently both the kids wandered off. When their parents couldn't find them, they called us. We came to search the area immediately, and we found the daughter pretty quickly. And when we asked her where her brother was, she told us he'd been taken away by the bear man. She said he gave her berries and told her to stay quiet, that he wanted to play with her brother for a little while. The last she saw of her brother, he was riding on the shoulders of the bear man, and he seemed calm. Of course, our first thought was abduction, but we never found a trace of another human being in that area. That little girl was also insistent that he was not a normal human being, but he was tall and covered in hair like a bear, and he had a weird face. We searched that area for weeks. It was one of the longest calls I've ever been on, but we never found a single trace of that kid. second one was a young woman who was out hiking with her mom and grandpa. According to the mother, her daughter had climbed up a tree to get a better view of the forest, and she never came back down. They waited at the base of the tree calling her name for hours before they called for any help. Again, we searched everywhere and we never found a trace of her. I have no idea where she could have possibly gone because neither her mother or her grandpa saw her come down. A few times I've been out on my own searching with the canine unit, and they've tried to lead me completely straight off cliffs or all the way up them. And I mean, not hills, not even rock faces, straight sheer cliffs with no sort of possible handholds. It's always baffling every time, and in those cases we usually find the missing person on the other side of the cliff, or miles away from where the canine unit originally led us. I'm sure there's an explanation, but it's sort of strange. One particularly sad case involved the recovery of a body. There was a 9-year-old girl who fell down an embankment and got killed on a dead tree at the base. It was a complete freak accident, but I'll never forget the sound her mother made when we told her what happened. She saw the body bag being loaded into the ambulance and let out one of the most haunting, heartbroken wail I've ever heard. It's like her whole life was crashing down around her, and a part of her died with her daughter. Another SAO officer told me that same woman killed herself a few days later. I suppose I understand. No parent who loves their child to that extent could ever deal with that kind of loss. I was teamed up with another SAR officer because we'd received reports about bears in the area. We were looking for a guy who hadn't come home from a climbing trip when he was supposed to, and we'd ended up having to do some serious climbing to get to where we'd figured he'd be. We found him trapped in a small crevice with a broken leg. It wasn't pleasant. He'd been there for almost 2 days, and his leg was obviously infected. We were able to get him into a chopper, and I heard from one of the EMTs that the guy was completely inconsolable. He kept talking about how he'd been doing fine, and when he got into the top, a man had been there. He said the guy had no climbing equipment, and he was wearing a parka and ski pants. He walked up to the guy, and when the guy turned around, he said he had no face. It was just blank. He freaked out and ended up trying to get off the mountain too fast, which is why he'd fallen. He said he could hear the guy all night climbing down the mountain while letting out these horrible, inhuman, muffled screams. That story bothered the hell out of me. I'm glad I wasn't there to hear it. Now, one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me involved the search of a young woman who'd gotten separated from her hiking group. We were out late at night because the dogs had picked up her scent. When we found her, she was curled up under a rotted log. She was missing her shoes and pack and was clearly in shock. She didn't have any injuries, and we were able to get her to walk with us to base ops. Along the way, she kept looking behind us, asking, "Why is that big man with black eyes following us?" We couldn't see anyone, so we just wrote it off as some weird symptom of shock, but The closer we got to base, the more agitated this woman got. She started yelling into the forest, saying that she wanted him to leave her alone. She wasn't going to him, she said. She wasn't going to give us to him. We finally got her to keep moving, but we started hearing these weird noises coming from all around us. It was almost like coughing, but more rhythmic and deeper. It was almost insect-like. I don't really know how to describe it. When we were within the side of base ops, the woman turns to me, and her eyes are just about as wide as I can imagine a human can open them. She touches my shoulder and says, "He tells you to speed up. He doesn't like looking at the scar on your neck." I have a very small scar on the base of my neck, but it's mostly hidden under my collar, and I have no idea how this woman saw it. Right after she says that, almost immediately I hear that weird coughing in my ear again, and I just about jumped out of my skin. I hustled her to ops, trying not to show how freaked out I was. But I really have to say, I was so happy when we left that area that night. This is the last story I'll tell this evening. And this is the weirdest story I've experienced. Now, I don't know if this is true in every SAR unit, but in mine, it's sort of an unspoken regular thing we all run into. Now, you can try asking about it with any other officer, but even if they know what you're talking about, they probably won't say anything about it. We've been told not to talk about it by our superiors. And at this point, we've all gotten so used to it that it doesn't even seem weird anymore. On just about every case, we're really far into the wilderness. I'm talking 30 or 40 miles. At some point, we'll stumble upon a staircase in the middle of the woods. It truly is an odd sight. It's almost like if you took the stairs in your own house, cut them out, and then paste them in the forest. I asked about it the first time I saw some, and the other officer just looked at me, told me not to worry about it. Oh, that it was just normal. Everyone I asked says the same thing. I wanted to go check them out, but I was told very empathetically that I should never go near any of them. I suppose I just sort of ignore them now. But I encounter it so often. No, I said that was my last story, but I have a lot more I have to share. And I suppose if anyone's interested, I'll tell some of them another time, but if anyone has any theories about those stairs, please let me know. Or if you've seen them, or encountered them, share your experience with me. Otherwise, have a wonderful evening, everyone. And always stay safe in the wilderness, because you never really know what really could be out there.